Hi everyone, and welcome back. So, today is less of a lesson and more of an explanation on top of our opinion. So, in Native American history, especially when you reach the college level, when you start studying frontier history, Native American history, early US history, we touch on Tecumseh a lot. Usually, we, especially when you reach the grad level, we either touch on Tecumseh or Tecumseh's brother, Tenskwata. Um, and that's because, in a lot of ways, the War of 1812 and the Native American conflicts actually matter a lot more than the Canadian expeditions or British North America, as it was called, and even the conflicts happening on the East Coast outside of the Battle for Baltimore and siege, and that's because for the most part, the Canadian expedition, outside of giving Canada uh, origin myth that I can work with, and outside of status quo and actually forcing the United States to have more of a game plan, more of a professional military, realizing not having a centralized banking system while at war is a bad idea. Looking at you, Masson. The Native American conflicts with the Red Stick Creek and the Shawnee, it's important because in a lot of ways, this was kind of their last chance to really have a deal in place for for having a united Native American Confederacy or alliance to have their demands met, make a line in the sand, and well, and that didn't happen. Like, the reason why Tippecanoe, even before the War of 1812 started, is important because in a lot of ways that sets the standard. That sets a pattern for a lot of Native American resistances going forward. A traditional religious revival, gaining followers, charismatic leaders, demonstrations, and then a battle that would later be crushed. And in a lot of ways, Prophetstown is kind of the pattern we see for a lot of Native American resistance against the United States. On top of that, Tenskwata was able to get followers, and while it and while later Tecumseh would take over, he does kind of become the focal point for at least gaining the followers to challenge the United States. And the reason why it was kind of an uphill battle to begin with is because by this point, by the time Tecumseh and Tenskwata and a Shawnee Confederacy could be formed, there were already divisions between treaty leaders and those who wanted to resist. The treaty leaders are either people who tried to resist in the past and their movement already failed, or they already had a deal in place where they were already ready to go for reservations, or they already had lands promised to them. And because that, even for Tecumseh to be recognized as the leader of the Shawnee was an uphill battle, and while he would later gain followers from multiple Shawnee groups, amongst others, and the Red Sticks in the South would have their own moment, Tecumseh not being there for Prophetstown for the Battle of Tippecanoe meant in a lot of ways that he would have to start over, and without Tenskwata being there to be a religious voice, it goes from a religious movement and religious resistance with some armed conflict to Tecumseh having to be that charismatic leader on top of the military leader. And while he would be very important for the defense of Canada, having at least some working relationship with the British officials in West today Canada, because he died when he did, he died before the end of the War of 1812, there really wasn't any unified Native American leadership for representation for the Treaty of Ghent. And because of the later battles of against the Red Creek, the Seminoles, without even a halfway united Shawnee, and there really wasn't anything to stop Manifest Destiny. There wasn't any way for resistance to keep going, especially because by this point, the British were ready to kind of try to hold forts in North America territory that was being claimed by the United States. There was the treaty itself, and that made them stop funding Native American resistance. And without the British even being a bad ally, without them being an ally at all, there really wasn't any way that Native Americans really could have a unified front, any unified resources, anything like that for them to make that line in the sand. So if you guys have any issues with what I've said, if you want to know more, I highly recommend the book Shawnee Prophet. I will list it in my description. Have a good rest of your night.